Hey everybody, I'm John Storm for Armored Combat Worldwide and the Rock City Rogue Knights, and today we're going to continue where we left off with our Gambeson project. So this is how to make a Gambeson part 2. Stay tuned. All right, and we're back. So today we're going to go ahead and get back into it. Last week we left off where we had just made the body of the jacket, but we hadn't added any arms. We hadn't even made them yet. So we're going to pick up where we left off there, and let's get cracking. Okay, so getting started with the upper sleeve. You can say I'm checking the book and everything. First thing is to stack everything. Sandwich that batting in between the inner layer and outer layer. Make sure you identify the left arm from the right arm according to the book. Now, one mistake that I made that I'll go ahead and let you know right now is right at this stage, this is where I should have started my quilting lines. Instead, I went ahead and sewed in the gores first, and that just made making the quilting lines a little bit more difficult. So for your own reference, when you go ahead and try this, knock out your quilting lines now. Now I'm stacking the underarm gore there, and I'm just marking out my seam lines. You'll notice that when you try to pair up the gores inside the slits, that you won't be able to knock out a full half-inch seam allowance on the actual sleeve side, but the gore you can. You'll have to kind of offset everything, so it's important to mark out your lines just so that way you're not guessing. The book will go into a little bit more detail about that, just heads up on that one. This just makes it a little bit easier. And now we got the front gore, and I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm setting up the lines on there for my seams, and get them stacked, get them pinned, and start sewing them onto into the main thing, the main gore slit there on the sleeve itself. Like I said, it's better if you get the lines marked out on the upper arms beforehand. You're about to see why in a moment. And right here, I'm just going ahead and setting up the back gores. So these are the two pieces that meet in the back of your, well, it's on your back. It's the rear portion of the sleeve. And there's really not much to say about it. Those are pretty easy to do. So here we go. You're going to notice in a little bit. See right here, this portion of making those lines, pretty easy. But as we get up into where the gores are, it gets a little bit more difficult. Now is where you have to kind of move things around and try to. And it's not too much of a hassle, but it would have been much easier and much cleaner if I had made those markings ahead of time. And now I'm just trying to line everything up on the gores themselves, and you kind of have to freehand those a little bit. Not a real big issue, not very difficult to do, but like I said, it just would have been better if I had marked out the main lines on the main piece first, and then sewn the gores on and transferred those lines over to them as well. So, heads up. And now we have the forearms. This is the forearm portion. If you notice the way those are shaped, it's actually shaped so that way your elbow sits cupped in there. And you'll see that towards the end of the video where I'm wearing it, and I'll show you that portion. It actually fits kind of nicely. Nothing really rides on your elbow in this particular shape. And the jacket kind of ends up taking a shape of its own. Now that the forearms have been quilted, it's time to go ahead and attach them to the upper arms. And it's also pretty simple, you know, just take your time, pin everything in place, and then get ready to stitch it. Not very difficult. Now this is a point where I went off script. I decided to do something a little more modern here. So what I'm taking is I've got the outer layer, the inner layer, I'm putting them right on each other. And if you notice the outer layer, I have the lines faced towards the inner layer. Next up, the batting goes on top. Now there's a reason why I'm doing this. So let's go ahead and stitch these together real quick. Go ahead and stitch these. There we go. Okay, now that I got my scissors, I'm just going ahead and that last little, that where the half-inch seam is, I'm cutting 1/4 inch of the batting off right there. All right, now the reason why I stacked it this way is I'm going to go ahead and fold the outer layer back around, and that's where you'll see the lines, the quilting lines, are now on the outside once I do that. But I'm just cutting 1/4 inch of the batting off of that fold just to make it a little bit easier for everything to wrap around. And you'll see in a minute. Right here, just clip the threads real quick and put the scissors back once I'm done. No, they don't go on the arm. There you go. All right, now we just go ahead and pull that out. And if you notice right there, now we'll go ahead and iron it real fast and fold it over. All right, here we go. So you can see right there, it's now been ironed out, so it's nice and flat, folds over, there you go. Now it goes outer layer, inner layer, or outer layer, batting, and inner layer. So now we're gonna go ahead and just stitch 1/4 inch away from the edge. That's all, just 1/4 inch to just to close that up nicely, and that'll give you a nice seam on the cuff. And I'm just setting that stitch to 2.5 mil for closing this. Now I'm setting the machine back to a 3 mil stitch, and I'll go ahead and there it is, 3 mil, and I'll go ahead and just start doing the following the quilting lines. Now right here, I'm just going ahead and lining up the open end of the cuff, not the one we just seamed, the open end. And I'm going to go ahead and attach that to the main sleeve. Now when we're done, we'll be able to pop it back open, and we've got a full sleeve from shoulder to wrist. Now at this point, we're going to go ahead and close the sleeves. So that means sewing both ends together and turning it into a tube, which at this point you can go ahead and see I'm going to try on, make sure it fits. It does. We're good to go. Now, an important lesson here that I'm about to learn in a minute. Make sure you take the sleeve and flip it inside out, or inside in, I mean. If you can see right here, you can see the whiteness, the inner layer of the jacket itself, but you see the black hole right there? That's the outer layer of the sleeve, and I kind of screwed up here when I did this. And in a minute, you're going to see that. So right here, I was actually wondering if I was about to screw it up, and right there's where I figured out, yeah, I screwed up. There it is. So the problem is now I have to de-stitch it and pull it back apart. I sewed the sleeve on inside out, basically, so that was the big mistake I made. So make sure once you finish closing the sleeves, flip them around. So pull the wrist through the shoulder, then go ahead and attach them. I did not do that and paid for it. It took me about a good 20 minutes to carefully pull those stitches off. All right, so right here, I'm just going ahead and marking out a 1/2 inch line following the contour of the outer of the close of the jacket, and that's basically just so I have a fold line, because I'm going to go ahead and hem it. Right here, I'm just going to serge the open seams right there, and now iron it and fold it over, and bring it over to the machine and sew it in place. So that was just easier than the historical method. And there you have it, a completed jacket. And you can go ahead and see how it fits right here. It fits a tiny bit snug, but that's how it's supposed to, so that way it doesn't get in the way of the armor. So, we've got the completed piece, as you can see. Next time I do one of these, there are going to be some modifications that I'm going to make to it. One, I'm probably going to extend this area out just a little bit more. Two, I'm going to extend the upper portion of the sleeve down a little bit more, whereas this part fits my forearm very nicely. It sits right in there just as it should. This part could stand to be a little bit longer because it's kind of choking up on my arms a tiny bit. The waistline I might bring in a little bit more, and the chest line I might extend out a little bit more. So a couple of things that I'll do and I'll adapt, and that's going to be the case with any type of pattern that you make. Even if you know how to draft your own patterns, I draft some of my own stuff as well, and even then I still play with some of the stuff that's custom made for me. So expect that. But right now this thing actually fits pretty nice. It's easy to move in. I've already tried it under my armor. It works quite well. I'll go ahead and sew some pour points on there at some point, in which case we'll do a video for that as well, so you can see how that's done. I kind of saved you some of the details on the finish work because that's just brutal to watch. I will say this, for some of the inner seams here, it might just be easier for you to use a serger, and as opposed to hand stitching them in place. You know, there's no need to have to stick to that historical look. I mean, this is more of a sport anyway, not a reenactment or anything. So have fun with it. So I did have to go and get this laced up, so I went ahead and I managed to find some decent about 1/8 inch cotton cordage. So that was nice, but the downside was I couldn't find an aglet. An aglet is the little brass cap that goes over top of the cord that you use to lead it in. So I had to just pick up some brass and whip one up, and I'm going to go ahead and save you the footage on that one as well, because as it turns out, I made it so it goes in kind of tight. So the problem is it doesn't go back out so easily right now. I have to figure that part out, because as of right now, I am permanently wearing this jacket. I am stuck in here right now. I'm basically, I sewed myself in. So I certainly hope that you found this project fairly simple and not so daunting. I mean, certainly, if someone like me, someone who accidentally laced themselves permanently into a jacket, if someone like me can figure out how to make this, anyone can. Once again, I'm John Storm for Armored Combat Worldwide and the Rock City Rogue Knights, and we look forward to seeing you in the list. Hey, don't forget to hit like and subscribe, okay? You guys have a good one. Yep. Yeah, I'm stuck. I am definitely... Son of... Get out! Damn it. Hey, babe! You know where the scissors are?